Hello, internship class. It's Steve. I hope that you had a great weekend. We are now at week number 7. And this week, our theme or topic is really focusing on both the final project and your final evaluations. So for this brief video, we're going to talk a little bit about feedback and evaluation and different approaches that you can have to the feedback and evaluation process. So you have been working with your host site supervisor now for 7 weeks or maybe even longer if you started your internship prior to the beginning of this term. And you have hopefully come to realize that they are a great source of learning for you. You probably have noticed too that they can have differing management styles that we'll touch on in a second, and that any effective relationship in life is something that needs to really be worked at, nurtured, cultivated, and improved. And that is certainly true as well for the site supervisor intern relationship. So the process of supervision sometimes can make students feel some anxieties, a little bit of resistance to learning and change. We kind of get in that comfortable zone, and sometimes to take a defensive posture. Look, none of us like being told that there's something we need to improve upon. But as we'll learn in a second, the role of feedback does have that, how shall I say it, growth mindset that allows for developmental opportunities. So we see here the different types of internship supervision. You can decide for yourself where your internship falls within these: fast-paced versus laid back, details versus whole picture, task versus process-oriented, sharing of information. What are the norms for that with your internship experience? Freedom versus micromanagement. So you can look at these different types of supervision, and prior to you meeting with your supervisor to discuss your final evaluation, maybe think about the type of supervision that you've received in your internship. Some of you may be supervisors yourselves and can kind of put yourself maybe in more than one of these different supervisory categories that you see here. But I think it's important before you actually meet with your site supervisor to kind of think a little bit about what is their style of supervision and how has that style of supervision impacted you throughout the session. We already talked about feedback being a growth opportunity, learning and empowerment, development. Feedback is also a wonderful opportunity to practice professional dialogue with your host site supervisor. Some final thoughts on feedback that you see here. We want to be open to the feedback that we're receiving on our final evaluation. View any feedback as areas for growth, any improvement coaching, as they call it, as areas for growth or constructive feedback. Continue to manage your internship relationships as we enter the final stages of this course and your internship experience itself. And focus on self-awareness and assessment. So think about, prior to meeting with your host site supervisor, this was in another video that you probably have not watched or viewed, but nonetheless, the importance of kind of doing your own self-assessment of how you performed in the internship, what you've learned, how you've changed, how you've been transformed by the experience. And just a final reminder for your final evaluation, it is due this Sunday, June 20th. So be sure to reach out to your site supervisor if you have not already done so, to schedule a day and time to review your final evaluation, complete it virtually, or if your internship is a standard face-to-face experience, that is fine as well. Remember that your final evaluation counts twofold. So you get points for the final evaluation itself, but then you also get points for the internship check-ins. And I bring that up because if you have not received any feedback from me as of yet from your host site supervisor, that means that your host site supervisor has not provided any feedback, which that feedback goes to those internship check-in points, which I think is a total of 100, maximum of 100. So you really want to provide your host site supervisor some friendly reminders. I have here follow up with them by Friday, June 18th to make sure that they have emailed me the signed copy of your final evaluation. So you have to actually sign the evaluation, and we do that because we want to make sure that they have discussed the content with you. So as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me at s.young7@snhu.edu. I also posted an announcement, a really quick one, about the final grading events for week number 7 and 8. So you want to keep those on your radar. But next Sunday, June 20th, is kind of the big ticket day. That's when not only your final evaluation is due, but also your final project. We did post last week really helpful, what I hope to be a helpful announcement on the final project, some tips on how to maximize your grade on that experience. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, and hope your week gets off to a great start.